All right, so today we're diving into Shawshank Penitentiary,
Oh, yeah.
but we're seeing it through Red's eyes.
Right.
That, iconic narrator from Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
And we actually have excerpts from Morgan Freeman himself reading the audiobook.
Wow.
So
that's pretty cool.
it's going to be really, really interesting to kind of hear those words.
Yeah, his voice just brings that whole place to life. You know?
Ah, yeah.
He's not just like telling the story. He's lived it.
Yeah.
And his insights into Andy Dufresne are just like pure gold.
Yeah, so for anyone who somehow hasn't seen the movie or read the book,
Right.
Andy is this successful banker convicted of killing his wife and her lover.
Right.
Seems like an open and shut case, right?
Yeah, on the surface, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the affair, you've got the gun purchase.
Right.
Andy seems pretty emotionless about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to remember, all that evidence is circumstantial.
Oh, that's true.
The murder weapon is never actually found.
Yeah, and then there's this little detail about Andy buying dish towels
Right.
before the murders.
Uh-huh.
And the prosecution argues he used them as a silencer,
Yeah.
but he claims he doesn't even remember buying them. It makes you think, how much weight do we put on these little things,
Weight.
these, little bits of evidence?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a classic example of how our perceptions can be swayed, right?
Yeah.
And Andy's demeanor throughout the trial,
Yeah.
he's so calm, almost detached.
Right.
It probably worked against him.
Really?
Yeah. Jurors, they often look for these outward displays of emotion.
Yeah.
Remorse, even.
Right.
And Andy's lack of it could have been easily misconstrued as cold-heartedness.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Andy ends up in Shawshank,
Right.
and Red describes this whole prison economy,
Yeah.
right? This intricate system where he's the guy you go to for everything.
Yeah. He's the guy. He can get you anything.
But how does Andy, this seemingly out-of-place banker,
Right.
fit into this world?
Well, at first, Red is as bewildered as anyone.
Yeah.
But then Andy asks him for a rock hammer.
A rock hammer.
Yeah, not for some escape plot or anything,
Right.
but for his hobby, rock collecting.
Wow.
It's such a bizarre request in that environment.
It's like clinging to normalcy in the most abnormal place.
Right.
Is it escapism?
Yeah.
Defiance?
Is it?
A way to hold on to his identity?
Yeah. What do you make of it? I think it's definitely a form of resistance.
Okay.
Andy's not letting Shawshank break him.
Right.
He's creating a world within a world, maintaining a connection to something that he loves.
Yeah.
And this is where we start to see the real Andy emerge.
Okay.
The man beneath the surface.
But it's not all smooth sailing, right?
Oh, no.
Red talks about the sisters.
Right.
This predatory group of inmates.
Yeah.
That are targeting weaker individuals. Andy, unfortunately, becomes their focus.
This highlights the just brutal power dynamics within prison walls.
Yeah. Right.
Strong preying on the weak.
Yeah.
It's this disturbing microcosm of societal issues.
Yeah.
It's survival of the fittest in the most primal sense.
And Andy gets attacked.
Yeah.
Brutally.
Yeah.
But instead of just being a victim, he fights back.
It does.
Loses every fight.
Yeah.
But he never stops resisting.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
He could so easily give in,
Yeah.
become another statistic.
Yay.
But there's this inner strength, this refusal to be broken.
Uh-huh.
We see it again when he's cornered, threatened with sexual assault.
Oh, God.
Instead of pleading or fighting back physically,
Right.
he calmly explains the biological effects of a brain injury.
What?
I know.
How does he even think of that in
Oh.
such a terrifying moment?
Well, it shows incredible quick thinking,
Yeah.
a deep understanding of human psychology.
Right.
He uses his intellect as a weapon, turning the tables without resorting to violence.
And then there's the beating of Boggs Diamond.
Right.
The leader of the sisters.
Yeah.
It's never explicitly said,
Right.
but Red hints that Andy might have orchestrated it,
Good.
if that's the case.
Yeah.
It reveals a strategic, almost Machiavellian side to Andy.
Right.
It shows he's willing to play the game to fight back on his own terms.
On his own terms.
So we have this image of Andy, quiet, intellectual, seemingly passive,
Right.
but there's clearly a lot more going on beneath the surface.
Absolutely.
And it's fascinating how Red starts to see him differently.
He does. He recognizes something unique in Andy.
Yeah.
A resilience, a
Yes.
strength of character
Yeah.
that he just hasn't encountered in other inmates. It's the beginning of a profound shift in their relationship.
Yeah.
It really is.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
almost like a chess game, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have Andy, this seemingly unassuming player,
Right.
making strategic moves that nobody sees coming. But before we get too deep into his prison life,
Okay.
let's rewind a bit.
Uh-huh.
What was Andy's life like before Shawshank?
Right.
Who was this guy before he became inmate number 37927?
Well, before Shawshank,
Yeah.
Andy was living the American dream.
Right.
A rising star in the banking world,
Uh-huh.
vice president at a young age. He had the money, the status, the seemingly perfect life.
Yeah. But as we know,
Right.
those perfect facades often hide cracks underneath.
Oh, yeah.
And in Andy's case, those cracks were pretty significant.
Yeah.
Red talks about Andy's wife, Linda,
Uh-huh.
this beautiful socialite who, as fate would have it,
Right.
was having an affair.
With her golf instructor, no less.
Oh, wow.
It's a classic tale of infidelity.
Yeah.
But what's intriguing is
Yeah.
how Red describes Andy's reaction to it.
Okay.
He wasn't enraged, as you might expect.
Yeah.
He seemed more distressed.
Distressed. Almost
Yeah.
like he was observing it from a distance.
Exactly. It doesn't exactly fit the image of a jealous husband plotting revenge.
No, it doesn't.
And that's where the prosecution's narrative starts to unravel a bit.
Okay.
They painted Andy as this cold, calculating killer
Right.
who meticulously planned these murders.
Yeah.
Does that really align with what we know about him?
No, not really.
Right.
They pointed to the revolver he bought a few days before the killings
Right.
as evidence of premeditation.
Yeah.
But couldn't someone argue that buying a gun
Sure.
after discovering your wife's affair
Right.
is a pretty normal, albeit flawed, reaction?
I mean,
It doesn't necessarily scream murderous intent.
that's a valid point.
Right.
It's all about interpretation, isn't it?
Yeah.
The prosecution used the gun purchase
Mm-hmm.
along with Andy's detached demeanor
Right.
to build their case.
Yeah.
But those same pieces of evidence could be interpreted in different ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And then there's the whole dish towel situation. The prosecution claimed he bought them to use as a silencer, even though he couldn't remember buying them at all.
It's a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it?
It is.
On one hand,
Yeah.
it could be a genuine memory lapse,
Right.
especially if he was in a highly emotional state.
Uh-huh.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
it feeds into the prosecution's narrative of him being this meticulous planner.
Right.
It makes you question everything you think you know about the case.
It really does.
Yeah.
And what about Andy's testimony?
Right.
He told the court he was blackout drunk the night of the murders. Couldn't remember anything.
Which, according to Red,
Yeah.
was hard for the jury to believe.
Really?
Yeah. Andy was known for his composure, his control.
Right.
The image of him getting blackout drunk didn't fit their perception of him.
And to make matters worse,
Yeah.
he testified that he'd thrown the gun into the river the day before the murders.
Right.
Convenient, right?
Oh, yeah. Of course the police never found him.
Of course.
That detail was like a gift to the prosecution.
Yeah.
They presented it as proof of his guilt,
Right.
of him trying to cover his tracks.
Like every piece of evidence, every detail
Right.
was meticulously woven into this narrative of Andy as a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah. And Red even comments on how Andy's demeanor on the stand
Yeah.
probably didn't help his case.
What do you mean?
He was calm, almost emotionless,
Really?
as he recounted the events leading up to the murders.
Mm.
That lack of outward emotion, that stoicism, was
Right.
probably misinterpreted by the jury as a sign of guilt.
Oh, wow.
They expected to see remorse, a breakdown,
Yeah.
something to humanize him.
But Andy being Andy
Right.
remained composed.
Almost robotic, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, almost.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And tragically, that stoicism may have sealed his fate.
Wow.
The jury found him guilty,
Oh, gosh.
sentencing him to 2 life sentences,
Yeah.
one for each victim.
It's a stark contrast, isn't it?
It is.
From a respected banker with a seemingly perfect life
For
through a convicted murderer,
Yeah.
another number in the system,
another number.
and then he's thrown into Shawshank,
Right.
this brutal, unforgiving world that Red so vividly describes.
Yeah, Shawshank becomes Andy's new reality.
One
A
of-
world with its own rules, its own economy,
Mhm.
and its own brutal hierarchy.
And it's within this environment that we see Andy's true character emerge.
Right.
He's not just surviving, he's finding ways to thrive.
Yeah, he is.
Which brings us back to those seemingly insignificant requests.
Okay.
The rock hammer, the rock blankets,
Uh-huh.
they represent something much bigger, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're a testament to Andy's resilience.
Okay.
His refusal to be defined by his circumstances. He's actively shaping his reality within those walls, clinging to the things that bring him joy and purpose.
And Red, always the astute observer, starts to see this too. Their relationship begins to shift, becoming something deeper, more meaningful.
It's the beginning of a profound friendship.
Yeah.
One that transcends the prison walls.
Right.
And ultimately becomes a source of hope and redemption for both men.
So we left off talking about how Red starts to see Andy differently, recognizing his strength and resilience.
Right.
But it's not just the rock hammer and the rock blankets. There's that iconic scene where Andy requests a poster of Rita Hayworth.
Oh, yeah. That poster becomes a symbol, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
A symbol of hope, of beauty, of a world outside those prison walls. It's a reminder that there's more to life than the harsh realities of Shawshank.
It's interesting how something so seemingly simple can have such a profound impact.
Right.
And it's not just about the poster itself, is it?
No, it's about Andy's refusal to let his spirit be crushed.
Yeah.
You know, it's about holding something that represents freedom.
Right.
Something that transcends the bars and the guards and the brutal routines of prison life.
And Red is drawn to that, isn't he?
He is.
He sees in Andy a kind of inner strength that he, despite being a powerful figure within the prison, doesn't quite possess.
I think that's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
Red, for all his resourcefulness, is still very much a product of Shawshank. He's adapted to that world.
Right.
Learned to survive within its rules.
But Andy, he's different.
He is.
He's not playing by their rules.
Nope.
He's creating his own.
Exactly.
And that's what makes their friendship so compelling.
I think so.
It's not just two guys helping each other out.
Right.
It's about two completely different perspectives colliding, challenging each other, and ultimately transforming each other.
It's a beautiful example of how human connection can flourish even in the most unlikely of places.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there's always the potential for growth, for change, for hope.
It's interesting how Andy's influence starts to extend beyond Red.
Yeah.
There's that scene where he helps a young inmate, Tommy Williams, get his GED.
Right. That's a turning point, I think.
Yeah.
It shows how Andy's hope is contagious.
Okay.
He's not just focused on his own survival.
Right.
He wants to help others find a way out of the darkness, both literally and figuratively.
And of course, we can't talk about Andy without talking about his escape.
Of course not.
This meticulously planned, incredibly audacious act of defiance that leaves everyone in awe.
The ultimate expression of his resilience, wouldn't you say?
It is.
The culmination of all those years of planning.
Right.
Of chipping away at the prison walls, both literally and metaphorically.
It's a powerful reminder that even when all hope seems lost, there's always a possibility of escape. Of breaking free from whatever confines us.
And Andy's escape isn't just physical, is it?
No.
It's a liberation of the spirit.
Yeah.
A triumph over the forces that tried to break him.
And what about Red?
Right.
How does Andy's escape impact him?
It reignites a flicker of hope that Red thought he'd lost long ago.
Wow.
It reminds him that there's a world beyond Shawshank. A world where redemption and second chances are possible.
And ultimately, that's what Andy's story is all about, isn't it?
It is.
It's a story about hope,
about
resilience, about the power of the human spirit to triumph over adversity.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Shawshank, what are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners will ponder?
I hope they'll remember the power of hope even in the face of despair. The importance of staying true to yourself even when the world tries to break you.
Right.
And the transformative potential of human connection, even in the most unexpected of places.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Andy Dufresne's journey is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always a glimmer of light, a possibility of redemption, and a reason to keep hoping.
I like that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
and
keep the spirit of discovery alive.